Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula One right now. We are currently in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend and gearing up for the race in Jeddah later today. But which stories have caught our attention this week? Today, Red Bull are afraid of losing Max Verstappen if they can't keep their performance levels going throughout 2025. McLaren have defended Lando Norris despite a sloppy few weeks, and we review all of the action from qualifying in Jeddah yesterday. Find out all about that and a whole lot more in today's show. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you're most interested in. So without further ado, let's dive in. So it's fair to say that Lando Norris had an eventful weekend last weekend in Bahrain for all the wrong reasons. He messed up in qualifying, that's pretty much what he said in his own words. Qualified down in P6, his teammate lined up in P1. Converted that to a victory, closed the gap to just 3 points in the championship. Lando Norris also lined up incorrectly on the grid, earning himself a 5-second penalty, and he failed to overtake a much slower George Russell at the end to get P2 for McLaren, something that I think really showed his kind of weaknesses at times. You know, he has great weekends. I think when Lando and Oscar are both 100% on it, in a race weekend, I would back Lando Norris to be quicker. But the problem is that Lando Norris's lows are a lot lower than what Oscar Piastri. If Oscar Piastri has a bad weekend, he'll probably get third or fourth. Norris, meanwhile, he could easily get outside the top 5. Although, to be fair, he hasn't really done that much this season. He still managed to get P3 in Bahrain, just showing how good that car is. But if other teams catch up and those gaps do close, Lando Norris might not be able to recover things as easily. If he does the same thing in Saudi Arabia this weekend, for example, I think he could be in big trouble. It's not very easy to overtake around there, not like Bahrain. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, a team boss has defended Lando Norris now because a few former F1 drivers, as I broke the news to you the other day, they basically said that, you know, Lando Norris's mental weakness is what's going to cost him the World Championship this year. Now, of course, Norris is still in the lead of the World Championship. Let's not hit the panic button just yet, but it was rather concerning to say the least. But someone's come out in defence of him now. Let's have a look at what's been said. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. McLaren team boss Andrea Stella has leapt to the defence of his championship leader, Lando Norris. While Bahrain pole sitter and winner Oscar Piastri is regarded as calm and stoical, teammate Norris regularly dives into distress and self-deprecation after what Stella admits was a sloppy weekend for the British driver. However, Stella, who has worked with champions including Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso, all at his time as Ferrari. He was actually Fernando Alonso's race engineer. Might have been Kimi Raikkonen's for a bit too, actually. Says that Norris is basically in the same mould. I haven't seen any professional athlete, especially F1 drivers or even world champions, who feel completely comfortable in a situation where they want to do something in the car, but it doesn't do what they want, said the Italian. It's an awkward situation, but the way Lando is dealing with it is no different to other champions I've seen in the past. If anything, Lando has more style. Stella admits, however, that the 25-year-old is relatively unique in how open he is publicly, which is often denounced as a sign of mental weakness. He makes it visible, he explained. He is very self-critical in interviews. I know of other champions who would be quick to blame others. Stella said Norris's tendency to absorb errors and blame himself is actually helpful for a team. For example, in Q3, he didn't complete the lap and immediately raised his hand, even though we knew he made some changes to the car that made his life difficult, he said. There are other drivers who, as soon as there is a problem, blame the team. That's not healthy. It's not something you can build on. Norris also defended himself, explaining what the public is interpreting as weakness is just another outlet of frustration when I haven't achieved what I want to achieve. It's my deep desire to do well and my enormous ambition to win, he said. That's just the way I am. But I don't think the things I say have a negative impact on me. I've done that my whole life and I know how to block out negative comments out of my mind. I mean, it's each to their own. Everybody's got different approaches when it comes to dealing with this sort of stuff, you know. My personal experience, I mean, it's very different to a Formula One driver, but if you're being very self-deprecating, if you're believing you're not doing good enough, and again, this is different for different people. Some people might use that as fuel to like, yeah, I need to do better, I need to improve. Some people, though, get themselves into a rut, and it depends how it's his thing at the end of the day. I'm not going to say that he feels a certain way, he doesn't feel a certain way. To me, looking at him in interviews, it was difficult listening to him after qualifying. He was very self-deprecating. He was very kind of beating himself up because it wasn't great. And like Stella said, there is another explanation for that with the car being set up in a certain way. Now, is that Norris's fault for allowing that to be set up a certain way? I don't know. I don't know what conversations he had with his race engineer, with his mechanics. They might have thought, well, if we take some wing angle off the front wing or whatever, or we make this adjustment here, it'll make you faster. And Norris believed it. Maybe he should have said, no, I like the car the way it is now. Or maybe he was right to try something different. It didn't work out. It all depends on how you interpret the results when it comes to that. But from the outside, it's very unique. And unfortunately, with the way the media is, you say those sorts of things and it's going to come back to haunt you. It's going to hurt you, unfortunately for him. And as good as he is to block things out like he says, there comes a point where it gets to you. You know, I've had it before where I've tried to block out negative comments, and for the most part I do on my videos and stuff, and just in life in general, really. I've had it in all walks of life. I think everybody does, to be fair. There's always someone trying to bring you down. Always. Don't matter who you are, there's always someone trying to bring you down. There's always a downer out there. Whether they're meaning to do it or not, that's a different thing. But, you know, it comes a point where, like, if he loses leading the championship, for example, to Oscar Piastri, if he makes another mistake, how is that going to affect him? There comes a point where it will probably potentially get too much, and you have to answer your critics. And he might well do that. But if he doesn't, the British media in particular are ruthless when it comes to that. You look at what they do to our football team. You look at what they do or did to Lewis Hamilton back in his early days. The amount of negative headlines in publications, newspapers like the Daily Mail back in the day. You go and look at what they were saying about him back in the day, and you tell me that they didn't give him a hard time, because they did. And of course, eventually he answered his critics, became a knight, won 7 championships, answered all his critics. Now they love him. But before that, they hated him. You can probably guess why. But something that makes him very unique in the world of Formula 1, unfortunately. They didn't like that. They don't like people like that. But anyway, I'm not going to do a rant about the British media. What do you guys think? Do you think Lando Norris is too hard on himself? Do you think he's too self-deprecating? Do you think it's detrimental to his form? I think it might be, to be honest. Maybe he doesn't realise it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion. We'll see. The proof will be in the Saudi Arabian pudding. Whatever that tastes like. It is fair to say it was a very difficult weekend for Red Bull around the Bahrain International Circuit. They were relatively nowhere in qualifying, and during the race it wasn't that much better, really. Max Verstappen labouring to a P6 finish, just overtaking Pierre Gasly's Alpine on the last lap. An Alpine car that hadn't scored a single point before that weekend in Formula 1 in 2025. Meanwhile, I mean, things are looking better for Yuki Tsunoda. At least he was in the top 10 during qualifying, and he ended up finishing P9 in the race, which is not a bad effort when you consider that he only just drove the Red Bull RB21 for the first time a week ago in his home race in Japan. But Marco, Dr. Helmut Marko, the man that loves a quote in the media, now says that he is having huge concerns about Max Verstappen leaving that team. Now, of course, Verstappen is officially contracted with Red Bull Racing until the end of the 2028 season, so he, in a sense, isn't going to go anywhere. Or is he? There's been a lot of rumours about him going to Aston Martin, that fabled $1 billion deal that Lawrence Stroll is wanting to table for the 4-time Formula 1 world champion. Some say the greatest of all time. Of course, Lawrence Stroll is somebody who loves signing a world champion. He's done that with Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso in the recent past for Aston. Will he go for a 3rd champion in a row after Alonso either gets pushed aside or moves on at the end of his contract in 2026. Let's see what happens here, guys. Now, I've got the full story here with me. I do not have the article, unfortunately. The guy that makes these articles, Jared, is away at the moment. I am back after a few days away, and now he's away. It's the wonders of the school holidays. Even though we are half a world away from one another, we still have these timing issues, as it were. But I'll put some pretty pictures on the screen so you don't have to look at my face the entire time. Let's have a look at why the doctor is getting a bit worried about Max Verstappen. As Red Bull's performance situation worsens in unison with Max Verstappen's mood, speculation is refiring that the team could be set to lose its star driver. While the corks were popping at McLaren as Sunday in Bahrain established Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri as 1-2 in the drivers' standings, an emergency meeting was already taking place at Red Bull. Multiple reports say that Christian Horner, Dr. Helmut Marko, Pierre Vaca and Paul Monahan were frenzied in talks about a dire night under the floodlights. A little later, Marko was seen in a heated exchange with Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen. The quadruple world champion himself, though, had no intention to engage. Not at the moment, Verstappen said when told by Viaplay that he has a lot to discuss with his team. You go. I don't feel like it. He insisted that struggling to finish any higher than P6 came as no surprise to him on a high degradation circuit such as Bahrain. I already warned about it during the winter test here, said the Dutchman. I told my team, watch out, the gap is half a second, and that has now proven to be true. So in that respect, I was right. I don't think he feels good about being right in this case, though. After a similarly bad Saturday in Sakhir, team boss Horner did not even speak with the media as per usual. Our car is simply not balanced, team advisor Marko said late on Sunday, and we don't know what the problem is. I suspect it's mainly an aerodynamic problem. In the past post-race emergency meeting, it is believed that Red Bull decided to make immediate changes, including how the team approaches Fridays at Grand Prix. We need to question our approach, Marko admitted. For example, we must have better practice programs and that we use the engine more to understand where we stand. We have very good people, but they have to look within themselves. And everyone has to be open and honest. We know the car isn't competitive, but why is that? I mean, it looked pretty competitive in Japan, literally a week ago. What's happened? For Verstappen, who is in Bahrain and writing off his chances of winning a 5th consecutive title, Marko does not have good news. In the short term, there is nothing we can do technically. At least when we're in Europe, there should be hopefully progress. But with a performance like this, we won't be able to defend our World Championship title. And that's not good because we risk losing Max Verstappen. It is believed that if Verstappen drops out of the top 3 point standings, an exit clause will be triggered. Marko is not hiding that he's worried. The concern is huge, said the Austrian. There must be improvements that will allow him to win. We are very concerned and there are things going on at the moment. It is not clear what things are going on, but Sky Deutschland said on Sunday that Mercedes boss Toto Wolff said that he's increasingly excited about the prospect of perhaps signing up Verstappen for 2026. We are keeping both feet on the ground, said Wolff. We are happy with the way things are. The problem for Wolff is that George Russell, whose contract is up for renewal, is riding on a crest of consistency of good performance at the present. I mean, there's worse problems to have, but it's very difficult to legitimise getting rid of him at this point because he's doing really well, is Russell. Ralf Schumacher, however, is convinced. I think the game is over, said the former F1 driver. The only hope is that there is a Red Bull in Imola that suddenly competes for wins, but in Verstappen's position, it is logical that he wants to compete for wins. He has the opportunity to choose the best car in the paddock, and Red Bull is obviously not that. But with Verstappen's exit rumours set to heat up even further, Red Bull may need to consider a drastic move, like shuffling prominent names out of current positions. That's not a question that arises right now, Marko insists. Sure, Marko, sure. I mean, this is the thing, right? They are not doing well, like, behind the scenes. They haven't been for a long time. It's been chaos. There's a real infighting, a war. There's factions there. You know, you've got the Verstappens and Marko on one side, and then you've got Horner, and then you've got the owners on the other. Honestly, it's a real civil war in Red Bull, and it has been for quite some time. I mean, yeah, we'll have to see what happens with it. There are these rumoured performance clauses in there, and you can't say that Max Verstappen's not getting the most out of that car, because he absolutely is. He's putting it into places it does not deserve to be for the most part. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I've spoken about my thoughts about what could happen with Verstappen for a very long time. It seems that Mercedes and Aston Martin are the two likely destinations, and some people might say, well, what's going to happen to George Russell? They'd get rid of him. What's going to happen to Alonso or Stroll? They'll get rid of one of them. You know, they just will. 100%. 100%. Especially with Aston Martin. You got a chance to sign Max Verstappen. They'll take that. Lawrence Stroll boot his son out of the team. Lawrence Stroll get Alonso out of the team. I do think that would mean that Alonso would go, if I'm being honest. Can you imagine Alonso and Verstappen in the same team? You are asking for trouble with that. You really not so much on Verstappen's side of things, I don't think. I'd be looking more to Alonso. We know what games he likes to play. I mean, you might say, oh, he's been pretty chill recently. He's not done the same sort of things. Yeah, but he doesn't have a teammate that he feels threatened by, even though Lando Stroll right now is absolutely schooling Alonso in the championship, to be honest. Very early days, of course, and I expect that will eventually change. But yeah, Alonso's having a terrible season, so that could give them all the ammo they need. But Alonso's not performing. He's not getting points. He's worse than Stroll right now. Let's get Verstappen. So we'll see what happens, guys. I am fascinated. I mean, this is the thing that with Red Bull, they change so much. They could come to Saudi Arabia this weekend and get a podium. I could genuinely see that happening. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. They are able to turn things around very quickly. Their car is very inconsistent. I think that's how they do it. They're not exactly turning things around. I just think that car is a very narrow operating window when it's competitive, and it seems to do better in cooler climates. It was quite good in Australia. It was cool there. It was quite good in the race in China. You know, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't amazing, don't get me wrong, but Japan, of course, oh my god, they won the race, didn't they? So, but in Bahrain, nowhere really, and it was quite hot, and it's going to be quite hot in Saudi Arabia as well. So, yeah, not looking too great. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Is Verstappen going to look for a way out if this kind of performance continues? If he drops outside the top 3 in the championship, which could happen. You know, you've got, I think he's 3rd at the moment, but George Russell's not far behind. If he continues his Mr. Consistency performances, where I believe he's not been outside of the top 3 in any sessions, that includes the races, the sprint races, and as well in qualifying, any competitive session, I should say. Practice is different, not competitive, doesn't matter. But if you include qualifying as well, I think every single qualifying session, Q1, 2, and 3, he has been in the top 5 every single time, which it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. That is unbelievable consistency. So how can you get rid of him? Well, if you've got a 4-time world champion wanting to join, you might well do. George Russell is having an incredible season. The man is absolutely personifying the tag of Mr. Consistency in Formula One once again. He's finished in the top 5 of every Grand Prix this season. I'm also told as well, he's finished in the top 5 of every competitive session this season too, including sprints, sprint qualifying, and regular qualifying as well. Q1, 2, and 3. He's never been outside the top 5 in any of them, which is just incredible, really, when you consider that Mercedes is not the fastest car on the grid. It is one of the fastest. You can make a case for saying it's the 2nd fastest car on the grid. I'd probably go along with that, to be honest with you. Now, George Russell's contract is up at the end of this season, I do believe, but his team boss Toto Wolff wants to re-sign him as soon as possible, despite there being rumours of a potential link-up between Mercedes and Max Verstappen. We've covered that story quite a bit. Let's go over this one here now on the F1Chronicle.com as always, guys. As Formula One hops from Bahrain to Saudi Arabia, rumours are swirling that George Russell's future at Mercedes appears safe. The 27-year-old driver is arguably riding the most consistent wave of form of any other competitor in 2025, despite the fact that his contract is expiring at the end of the year. Some are convinced Toto Wolff has left the contractual door open in the event that he can snap up a disgruntled Max Verstappen, but authoritative reports are now emerging that Mercedes' boss has put a 2-year deal on Russell's table for 2026 and 27, with a further option for 2028 as well. Sky Italia reported rumours that the deal could be worth an impressive €30 million per year. I mean, they have the money now that Hamilton's gone. His contract would have definitely freed up a lot of funds. Toto Wolff would like to close the deal as soon as possible, the broadcaster claims. Auto, Motor und Sport gave only 2 drivers a full 10 out of 10 for their performances in Bahrain, the pole sitter and winner Oscar Piastri and George Russell. A masterpiece, the German magazine said. Detailing the British driver's self-management of technical problems, he still finished ahead of Lando Norris. Wolff agreed, "I'm almost speechless about his performance. There was so much to talk about Lewis Hamilton, who left us to go to Ferrari, about Kimi Antonelli, who arrives as the youngster with the high potential, but little was said about George," the Austrian added. "I've always said that is not fair, because he is one of the best drivers around. If Wolff still wants to sign Verstappen, it's theoretically possible that he could loan his 18-year-old protege Antonelli to another team. F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali thinks that a perfect place for the rookie Italian would be Ferrari. What a surprise, Mr. Domenicali, your former team that you're wanting them to sign. Italy needs a driver who, especially in today's world, represents a point of reference for the young people, he said on Italian radio Rai. Before comparing him to some other champion, I think it's right to wait a little, but the certainty is that he will become a protagonist in our world, Domenicali added. So an Italian in an Italian car would be really nice, but I think Toto Wolff doesn't agree at the moment. I don't think he would agree, to be honest. I think that Austrian very much wants that Italian in his German car. So yeah, it very much seems as though George Russell will be back, and it's not going to be hasta la vista, baby, for him. Because at the end of the day, why would you go changing him? He's doing so well. And even at 30 million euros a year, that is a bargain for someone who's performing like that. You know, Russell has got his critics. I have criticised him on a few occasions, not necessarily for his lack of pace. I don't think that's really been in question. I mean, more of his attitude and his antics and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about. Qatar last year, that was rather egregious in my opinion. I don't know. I still can't get over that, to be honest. But hey, it is what it is. It happened. And, you know, he's really, you know, just getting his, you know, head down and bum up, basically, when it comes to this. He's really just getting on with it in that car. He's performing so well. And I think it's a credit that Antonelli's performing as well as he is as well. I know he didn't do too well last weekend in Bahrain in the P11, but his performances at times have been fantastic. And, you know, most of the drivers, Antonelli, I think, will be showing up right now. But because George Russell's doing so well, he's more than holding his own. And like I said, he has an outside shot. It's not likely. I don't think it's likely at all. But if he keeps getting these top fives, these podiums, he's got an outside shot of the World Championship. But he needs a win for that. Is he going to get that in that car? Yeah, probably at some point during this season. I reckon so. But we'll have to see what happens, guys. Your thoughts in the comments below. Is George Russell right to be re-signing with Mercedes like this? Could he go elsewhere? Should they wait out for Max Verstappen Mercedes? There's all sorts of options on the table, apparently, but I don't think that one's particularly likely, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see. Just when you think Formula One is going one way and towards one team, something happens that is completely unexpected, and that very much happened today around the Jeddah Corniche circuit for qualifying for the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But what were the 5 things that we learned? What were the 5 main highlights? Well, let's dive into that with my qualifying review here on the channel, guys. So let us start by talking about Lando Norris. Now, I don't want to hate on the guy. I don't want to pile on him because he's very much going to have a lot of misery after today's performance. But oh my word, he is bottling big time. Lando is very much cooked. He is not going to be feeling very good after that. Now, it is one thing, of course, to do a bad lap in qualifying like he did in Bahrain. It is another thing to line up incorrectly on the grid, again like he did in Bahrain. But to crash out in Q3 and qualify down in P10, man, you can't be doing that. If you're wanting to win a world championship, you cannot be doing that. He is feeling the pressure. He is choking. And unfortunately, he's on the 5th row of the grid. And for him as well, given who's on the front row of the grid, that is the last thing he wanted to happen. He basically just went wide on his first run in qualifying 3. And unfortunately, just ran over the curbs and went into the wall, destroyed his car. It was a pretty severe crash, in all fairness. Piastri and Verstappen both asked if he was okay. Thankfully he was, but very much his confidence was battered though. But so he's going to have to hope that he's going to do something similar to what Max Verstappen managed to do in 2023 and go from 10th to 2nd during this race. But it's not an easy track to overtake at. It's going to be a very difficult ride for him during this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix actual race tomorrow. But yeah, pole position. Now, it was seen for all the world as though McLaren were going to get it. I said in my Friday practice review that McLaren were looking fastest. They got a 1-2 in free practice too. So naturally, Max Verstappen got a pole position. An incredible lap by him again. And again, you know, this Red Bull, it does seem to be very good in certain conditions. I think that it's having the same kind of problems as what it had last season, but actually amplified in terms of how narrow that operating window is. And there are some times when Verstappen doesn't actually get in that operating window. For example, in Bahrain a week ago. But when he's on it, when he gets that car firing on all cylinders, like we saw in arguably Australia and also definitely Japan and this weekend so far in Saudi Arabia, it does actually mean that he can very much perform in it and do a good performance. So on pole position, perfect lap for him. Absolutely incredible. I mean, the first lap was great. The second lap was something else. But he will be alongside Oscar Piastri on the front row of the grid. Both of these drivers very much looking forward to taking over that top spot in the championship ahead of Lando Norris. So Piastri did all he could, really. I mean, you might say maybe he should have got pole position ahead of Max Verstappen, but honestly, I think even Lando Norris would have really struggled to beat Max Verstappen if he got a lap in today. He was absolutely on it like a car bonnet, was the Dutchman. And yeah, Piastri is in with a chance for sure. And also in with a chance as well, an outside shot, Mercedes. Let's talk about them. They did a good job today as well. P3 for George Russell and P5 for Antonelli. Very similar to what they managed in Bahrain last week. Hopefully, they'll get both cars into the points and strong points as well as that. Of course, Antonelli fell away slightly during the Grand Prix in Bahrain last time out. But again, George Russell, you know, a dark horse for the championship. You know, it's possible. He's very consistent. And if he continues this form into the actual race itself, he will very much get a podium. Again, Mr. Consistency is looking good for at least the top 5 again. He's been in the top 5 during every single competitive session, I think. He's still kept that run going. I know he definitely done it in qualifying anyway. If he keeps it going in the race again, that is something else. So, yeah. The final thing that we learned, let's talk about Pierre Gasly. Now, he got a top 10 again. He is really getting that car firing. He is really making that Alpine work, and he got P9 today as well. I mean, the bottom of the top 10 in essence, because obviously Norris didn't set a lap in Q3, but still, he's on for points again. And this is massive in their battle because the likes of Haas, the likes of Sauber, you know, they don't look like scoring points. So any kind of points that Alpine can get right now will be huge for their aspirations in the championship. But yeah, those are the 5 things that we learned during qualifying. Not too many big incidents aside from the big shunt for Lando Norris. Like I said, he's choking, he's bottling, he needs to perform tomorrow. He's got to get at least a podium tomorrow. If he doesn't, his confidence is going to be shot to pieces. Albeit, we're going to go to Miami next, and Miami being one of his best tracks. Of course, getting his first ever win in Formula 1 there 12 months ago. But are you really confident that Lando Norris is going to see this through? Honestly, I would much rather back Verstappen or Piastri for the championship right now. But these things can change so fast. We were saying literally a few days ago, Red Bull are looking hopeless. Max Verstappen's going to want to leave the team. He's got a pole position now. He might well win the race tomorrow as well. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I'm not feeling too confident about Lando right now. He's on a real downward spiral in the moment. He's got to be careful because this championship, you know, it's his to lose. It really, really is. And right now he's losing it. But those are my opinions, guys. Those are my thoughts. Let us know yours in the comments below. Who's winning tomorrow? Verstappen, Piastri, Russell, Norris. Who's going to get the top step of the podium? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see some more like this. And yeah, have a fantastic weekend so far, guys. I hope you had a great time, and we'll see you soon for some more content just like this on the channel here on our Saudi Arabian Grand Prix coverage.